There are people serving very close to the president that have told me verbatim, we should expect, quote, shock and awe if the president wins a second term. You will see a flurry of executive orders. You will see the president pull out of foreign alliances. You will see the president align with dictators around the world.
That's Miles Taylor, and he one of a long list of people who have worked in the Trump administration, but now they're speaking out against the president. Now, many of them, they spoke to Bob Woodward for his book, Rage. It came out this Tuesday. Woodward describes how then Defense Secretary James Mattis went to Washington National Cathedral to pray for our country's fate under Trump's command. Woodward also says Mattis told Dan Coats, who was then the director of national intelligence at the time, quote, there may come a time when we have to take collective action. Trump is dangerous. He is unfit. Woodward also writes that Coats believed that Trump has no moral compass, and he suspected that Vladimir Putin had something on Trump. That's the only explanation for the way that Trump kept caving to the Russians. Again, that's the director of national intelligence. Then there's General John Kelly and Rex Tillerson, the former chief of staff and secretary of state, respectively. They've been quoted calling Trump an idiot. Tillerson reportedly said he's an effing moron. Michael Cohen, Trump's personal attorney and fixer, calls his former boss, and I quote now, a cheat, a liar, a fraud, a bully, a racist, a predator, and a con man who never does anything unless it benefits himself. And former National Security Advisor John Bolton, he also wrote a tell-all book saying Trump, he asked the Chinese to help him win the election, accused Trump of giving favors to dictators, and he called him unfit to lead. Let's bring in now someone else who has worked for this White House but is now warning about the dangers of Trump. Former Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci. You know, Anthony, we just went through the laundry list of people who've worked for the president, like yourself and Michael Cohen and others, who have come out basically issuing warnings about their old boss. Do you believe that list is going to grow between now and November 3rd, and maybe even some bold-faced names that are going to say that he poses a risk to this country?
The answer to your question is yes. There'll be more activity as we start to enter into October. There are brave men and women who are patriots first and partisans perhaps last that are going to come out and speak out openly. I guess the real question for all of us is, will George W. Bush come out and speak? That I don't know. But I do think that there will be former cabinet officials and there will be people that are in the White House, in the administration right now that are going to depart prior to Election Day and explain the systemic danger that is Donald Trump.
And you know, when General Kelly, General Dunford, and others, they haven't denied the statements attributable to them in the Goldberg article, but they also haven't come out and said, yes, he said that, the losers or the suckers comment, et cetera.
Well, that's only because of their respect for the traditions of the American military. You know, I'm close to all of those people. Admiral McRaven, Jim Mattis and I are very close. General Kelly, the great irony there, he fired me from the White House 3 years ago. We've become very close personal friends. Jeff Mason asked the proverbial question a few weeks back. He turned to President Trump when President Trump was in the North Portico. And he said, well, why don't you get a declarative statement from General Kelly? He was with you on all those trips and so forth. And of course, the president dodged that question because he knows he said all of those things. And he's used to lying. He's used to having this reality distortion field around him. He's used to having sycophants that will lie on his behalf. But he's not used to people with the moral rectitude of General Kelly. And so he's certainly not going to let General Kelly provide him a license to speak. Now, General Kelly, who is prepared to stay inside of the customs and the traditions of the American military and stay out of the political battles, is not commenting. But certainly if it wasn't true, they all would be commenting.
You know, one of the things probably didn't surprise you but me was before I heard the audio tapes from the Woodward book, I had always assumed, take COVID as an example, that the president said the things he said because he didn't read the briefings, he didn't actually conduct, policy conversations to get to the science or the medicine of things. But then I heard him very coherently, like everyone else did, said, oh yeah, this is how deadly it is, this is how easily it's transmitted, and the rest. And my broader question is, when he gets out and he lies, Is he lying knowingly, or is he just talking from his gut because he doesn't believe, in things like facts or all the rest? He'll just go with whatever his instincts are.
So first off, you're correct on what you said, though. He doesn't read the briefings, and he is intellectually vacuous, and he won't spend the time to learn things. But the reason why he was able to articulate to Bob Woodward how deadly the disease is, he is a prolific watcher of television. And so whether it's MSNBC, Fox, or CNN, he's flipping through those channels ad nauseum. And so the science is irrefutable. It's 6 times more deadly than the flu, and it's an airborne virus. And if you are the wrong person immunologically, you're going to die from the virus. So all of that stuff he said to Bob Woodward, he probably got from television. But I think you're asking a different point. Is he an indiscriminate, proactive liar? And the answer is yes. And so what I find interesting about what's going on right now, because he's got gaslighters inside the White House and he's got gaslighters inside the media establishment, or certainly some of the cable news punditry, there's still a quizzical expression of whether or not he's gaslighting or a full-blown premeditated liar. And so he is. And so now the difficulty is everyone thinks, well, Anthony Scaramucci doesn't like the president. He's demonizing the president. And so let's not take Anthony Scaramucci at his word, or Michael Cohen at his word, or Jim Mattis at his word, or General Kelly at his word, where these guys have all said that he's a congenital liar. I don't want to demonize the president. I have no need to. I'm just looking at it empirically, and I'm looking at it objectively. I think he is a danger and a threat to the system of our democracy and the institutions of our democracy. So therefore, I'm speaking out about it because I love my country. I would put my patriotism over my partisanship. And I've lived a very good part of the American dream. And I think it's very important. We have the empirical data. He's made the country weaker, poorer, and sicker, a result of which he does not deserve another 4 years. Moreover, he's a corruptive person. And 4 more years, we'll get a way worse administration, and we'll be heading in a downward slope that we don't want to be going in.
I got a lot of friends in either former or still attached to both the Southern District and the Eastern District. And if you read between the lines, I believe there's a lot of exposure for this president in the coming months and years with all the various investigations that were farmed out from the Mueller probe. To that end, do you believe the particularly extreme behavior we've seen from the president is all because, he'll do anything to get a second term? Or how much of it do you think is driven that he's afraid if he's out of office, the exposure he could be looking at without the power of a pardon pad?
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's playing for keeps. I mean, he's playing for what he says. Take him at his word. He's playing for the 12 years. He's expecting, if he can get the job again, he'll continue to corrupt the institutions of the democracy. I see a scenario where he could win a second term and resign 3 or 4, kick Mike Pence out of the vice presidential office, bring Ivanka Trump into the vice presidential office, resign, get a full-blown pardon from Ivanka Trump. She's the first woman president, and she's running as a sitting incumbent president against a Democratic opponent. So everything is on the table with President Trump. He doesn't care about our norms. He doesn't care about our customs. He doesn't care about the 244-year tradition of peaceful transition of power, or the checks and balances in the system that have allowed all of us to have our great individual liberties. Okay, so you tell me, it's not just the prosecutions that could potentially come, it's the notion of trying to sustain power.
Speaking about caring and not caring, one of the things Michael Cohen said that stuck with me was those folks who show up in the stands, encouraged not to put a mask on, they got the red hats, they'll wait there forever in the line, even in an indoors arena and all the rest. Cohen's like, he didn't care about them. For a guy who loved the A-list crowds and everything, when he was a private citizen, he doesn't relate or really care about that population. You were there. Is he right that if those people only knew what regard he really held them in, the people who fill his rallies, they might think differently of the man?
So, I want to be fair to him. Again, I don't want to demonize President Trump. I think he can relate to those people. I think that was his hallmark of his success in the campaign, And I think that's one of the reasons why the people go to those rallies. He's the great entertainer in chief. And so there is a connection there between those people. But I think Michael Cohen and Howard Stern are correct. Howard said that, hey, this guy has disdain for people that are not, in his mind, the quote unquote A-list celebrities. He would never allow any of those people to stay in any of his hotels, is what Howard said about him. So I think both sides of that are true. But here's the thing that you may or may not like, but this is my observation. Even if we could definitively prove to every one of those people that President Trump could care less about them, my guess is they still show up. Because he has them in a narrative about the great culture war in the United States, and they see him as the last white man standing. And he's blowing super hard on a racist dog whistle. Just look at some of those tweets related to the elimination of lower income housing in the suburbs, as an example. So he could shoot people on Fifth Avenue. He could tell those people to their faces that he roundly dislikes them. And I still think there's a very large swath of those people that will be supporting President Trump.
I think you're right. Anthony, I always appreciate a few minutes with you. Thank you so much.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back.